And she's also interested in studying the potential gender biases in science, and that's the topic she chose to share with us today. So thank you, Guida, for sharing this research line with us, and the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Elisa, for the kind presentation. And thank you, and also WSL, for inviting me to be here today. So when I was first invited, I was given total freedom to choose the topic I wanted to talk about. So I decided not to bring my main research line of area, but to bring this parallel research I'm doing on gender biases together, research I'm doing together with several students and also collaborators, some of the people that I named here. So this is not only my work, but it's a work of a large group of people, okay? So although Elisa already presented me, I'm going to, I had a slide just telling a bit more about myself. As she said, I'm an island biogeographer and community ecologist. Now I study these cool insect groups, which are the dung beetles. They are a really interesting group because they really allow you to study questions related with ecosystem function. They live and breed on dung. And because of that, they are involved in several ecosystem services, like dung removal, secondary seed dispersal. They're also involved in nutrient cycling in the soil, soil mineralization, etc. So I've been using this group of insects to try to understand which are the drivers and processes that act at different scales, geographic and time scales, to understand how these drivers affect local diversity and also ecosystem functioning. And I have some funding to do this. So hopefully next time I give a talk to you will be about the results of this research. But I work also on other topics together with my research group at the ecology department. I have a small group called BEYONCE, that stands for Biogeography, Nature, Conservation, and Community Ecology. And we work on a wide variety of topics, from restoration ecology to nature conservation topics at a macroecological scale, marine biogeography, impacts of land use changes and well, global change in general on bat diversity, and also different topics related with dung beetle ecology. So if you want to come over to Madrid, just drop me an email and we can discuss about potential funding, right? There are some options there that we can try. Anyway, so enough of giving publicity about myself, and let's move on to the talk, okay? So in this talk, I will give a brief presentation about gender biases, what is known about gender biases in science, and then I will tell you which are the questions, the specific questions I've been addressing with my colleagues, the methods we've been applying, and some preliminary results on research we've been doing on editorial boards in ecology journals and also in authorship in biogeography journals. Then I will give some brief conclusions about the results we have found, and I will give more information about why are there, well, some of the potential reasons of the existence of gender biases in science, hopefully to foster a little bit of debate, okay? I know it's online, so it's not so nice to do a debate, but anyway, maybe we can try it after the talk. So yeah, there are gender biases in science. I don't think this is a spoiler. Everyone knew about it, or most people know about it already. And the gender biases occur at different levels. For example, in this study, it was seen that the salary, there's a gap, a gender gap, in terms of the salary for people working in science in the UK. We see here different dots representing different institutions, and the colors represent different types of institutions, from universities to institutes to companies to publishers, etc. And these researchers compare, this researcher, Holly House, compared the median hourly wage of people working in science, and what she found is that women are paid 15% less than men in average, okay? And she compared people doing the same, having the same type of job, the same position. And this figure is even worse than the UK-wide figure of 10% gap in terms of gender. So women in general earn less when doing science than men. This might be somehow related with different things, one of them being the way recommendation letters are written. So in this study, it was a study focused on geosciences, but I think it reflects what happens in other research areas as well. This group of authors evaluated the tone of the recommendation letters being given to people applying to postdoctoral fellowships. And what they found is that male applicants had a higher probability of having a tone that reflects excellency and being letters written about them using words like scientific leader, he's a brilliant scientist, one of the best students I've ever had. While female applicants tended to receive less often letters like this. And usually the words that were used to express the female applicants' faculties or how the person is, usually the recommendation letters in females' case use words like highly intelligent, very productive, very knowledgeable, with a very good skill set, all good words, but don't reflect brilliancy, okay? Also, there are differences in the way the curriculum of the applicants are evaluated. In this really cool study published already 10 years ago, this group of researchers, what they did, they came up with a fake CV and then sent the CV out to be evaluated by different researchers. And it was a CV for supposed to be for someone applying to a laboratory manager position, okay? But in some cases, they sent the CV with the applicant name John, and in other cases, the CV was sent out as the applicant was a person named Jennifer. And what they saw is that the evaluators tended to give a higher grade of competence and hireability to John compared with Jennifer. Although it was exactly the same CV, when the reviewer thought it was a man, it tended to give him more higher score than if it was a female. And this was independent of the gender of the researcher evaluating the CV. So both women and men have this some sort of stereotypes that makes them evaluate differently male and female applicants. And then the researchers who evaluated the CVs were also asked to give a suggestion on what should be the starting salary for this person. And they suggested that John, the male applicant, should earn much more than the female applicant, Jennifer. Okay, so this helps explain up to some point the first figures I showed you about the differences in salary. Okay, but then gender differences in science then go to other levels, and the publishing system is full of gender biases. In this research based on geophysical sciences, but again, I think it's probably the same results in other research areas. It was found that journals invite too few women to act as referees. And for example, when the authors were asked, usually when you submit a paper, you are asked to give some suggestions or reviewers. And even in that case, both female and male authors suggested fewer women as potential reviewers than what was expected from the pool of potential researchers that work in geophysical sciences. Also, it was shown in this study that editors, especially men, tend to invite few female researchers to act as reviewers. Then gender biases are also occurring in the editorial boards. This case is a study looking at 6 journals in ecology and evolution, and they went, their objective was to evaluate what were the temporary trend, the time trends on the percentage of editors that are female. And they looked at 6 different journals: Functional Ecology, Journal of Ecology, Evolution, Journal of Applied Ecology, Journal of Animal Ecology and Methods in Ecology and Evolution. And you can see there's an increasing trend of having more female editors in this journal. Although in any of the journals, you go above the 35% of female editors. There are also gender biases in authorship. here in the study. It's a study that goes from the 1900s to 2011. It finds information not only from STEM, but also from other research areas on the social sciences. You see here the bars show the cumulative numbers of male and female authors. Okay, the gray being male and the white being female authors. There's an increase in authors through time and also of female, but not at the same scale of as male. And the dots here, right, in these colored lines, represent the fraction of authors that are female. The black lines are women in general. The red squares are women as first authors, and the blue symbols are women as last authors. And you can see that there's an increase from the 1960s, more or less, onwards, of a representation of women as first authors, again, in less than 30% of the papers. But regarding last authorship, the trend is not so clear and it's not so high, right? In this paper, when looking only at the ecology and evolution research area, these authors identify that only 22.76% of the authors are female. In another research done by Fox and colleagues, based looking only at ecology and evolution, and considering what is the author's position and the gender and the geographic location of each author, they looked at all the papers published in ecology from the year 2010 to the year 2015. And what they found is that the percentage of female authors as first author and author in general increased through time, but there is no similar tendency when we look at senior authorship. They also found some geographical differences with some regions, particularly Asia and Africa, having a lower representation of female authors. So putting this all together and much more research about this topic, I start working, as I was saying in the beginning, with different people on this topic. And we are interested in understanding if there is a gender balance in the composition of the editorial boards of all journals listed within the field of ecology in the year 2021. We are now up, okay, I'm going to show results for the year 2021, but we are updating the database, but I don't think the results will change much anyway. We also want to see if the proportion of female editors is associated with the journal's impact factor or the year of first publication, meaning how recent the journal is. Regarding authorships, we are interested in understanding if there are any gender differences in the number of authors and the position they have in the list of co-authors for studies published in journals related with biogeography. And we want to know if there are any countries where there is a higher or lower gender balance in authorships in these biogeography journals. So to achieve these goals, in the case of the editorial boards, we looked at we gathered the list of ecology journals for 2021 from Scopus. So this is a total of 161 journals. We visited each of these journals' webpage and obtained all the editors' name, the role they have, if they are associate editors, if they are editors-in-chief. We had to homogenize the database because different journals use different names for the same type of position. Then we obtain also the impact factor of each journal and the year of first publication. After this, we had to assign a gender to each editor. And to do so, we use this tool called Genderize, which is a big database that gives you the probability of a certain given name having a certain gender. And with this, we were able to associate a gender to most of the editors. But in those cases where there was some doubts about the gender, we looked in Google Scholar, the person's webpage, if they had one, social media, to try to find the person's gender. We did so for most of editors. I think around 98% to 99% of the editors we were able to assign a gender to them. And then we performed some basic analysis with Kruskal-Wallis test and also some GLMs. Regarding the results related with authorship, we obtained all the papers published from the year 2000 to 2019 in these four biogeography journals. I would say it's the most important journals in biogeography, which are Ecography, Diversity and Distributions, Journal of Biogeography, and Global Ecology and Biogeography. So this is about 9,000 papers, if I'm not mistaken. We went through all of them and obtained the author's name, the position the person had in that paper, if it was first author, last author, middle author, sole author, and also the country of the institution to which the person, the institution of the person that the person signed the paper with. Again, we assign a gender using the same approach to each one of these authors. And we perform some really basic analysis based on chi-square tests and correlation. So regarding the preliminary results we have on the editorial boards, here we see the percentage of women editors considered independently of the category of the editor, if it's an editor-in-chief or not, it's regardless of that. So 30% of the editors are women. When we look at the associate editors, the figures don't change. Just a small detail, you see here that the numbers are different. We have a higher number of associate editors because some people act as associate editors in more than one journals. That's why they count more than once. That's why the numbers are different here. And then in the case of editor-in-chief, the representation of females as editor-in-chief is a little bit lower than the numbers that I've shown you for the rest of the editors, with only 23.4% of the editors-in-chief being women. When looking at the effect of the journal quartile here, I'm showing you the total number of editors independently of their gender. We see there is some slight difference. We divided the journals according to their impact factor, but organized as quartiles. Okay, so it's a categorical variable. And we found that the journals with a higher impact factor have a higher number of editors, associate editors, and the editors in journal. No difference when looking at editors-in-chief. But, okay, what happens when we look at the percentage of female editors? We found no difference. So the percentages doesn't change with the impact factor of the journal. There's no effect of impact factor here. Regarding the journal's first year of publication, how old the journal is, we saw no trend regarding total number of editors. However, when we look at the percentage of female editors in the editorial boards, we saw a positive relationship, meaning that more recent journals have a higher percentage of female editors. Okay. But when we look at the editorial-in-chief position, we found no significant relationship. So regarding authorship in biogeography, as I said, these are preliminary research. It's a work in progress. We started gathering this information a few years back, but then we had the pandemics. Unfortunately, we had to put this research on hold for some time. We are now going back to it slowly. And in fact, we are considering looking at the effect of the pandemics in the publishing rates of women and men, probably making some sort of comparison between what was happening, what were the trends before 2020 and the trends after 2020. But something that we still have to work on, and hopefully I will have some results soon about this. So these are preliminary results. They come from the undergrad student, from the thesis of an undergrad student I had a few years back. She looked at about 1,500 papers published in ecography and global ecology and biogeography. Unfortunately, she didn't have time to look at all the journals, and she only looked at the odd years from 2001 to 2015. Here, what you see, it's the percentage of papers that have a woman and a man as a first author, and you can see that women, there are 28% of the papers published in this time period have a female author as first author, but only 15% of them have a woman as a last author. Regarding the total number of authors and how they accumulate through time, in blue we have male authors and in purple we have female authors. this is the total number of authors, male authors, okay, the steeper line. And then the purple continuous line is the number of cumulative number, sorry, of female authors. You also see an increase, but not as steep as it happens in the male authors. Regarding the first and last authorship, male, these are the dotted lines here, they overlap the first authorship and last authorship. You see also an increase through time in men and also in female, but in female at a much less steep curve, right? And in the case of female authors, which is the last line over here, down here, the cumulative number increasing, the number is almost not increasing through time, okay? So very few women are being incorporated as last authors. Regarding the percentage of female authors, the dots represent authorship in general. The triangles are women as first authors, and the squares are women as last author. We see a positive trend through time with increasing percentage of female authors and female as first authors, but no trends in the case of authorship. There's no increasing number, there's no increasing representation of females through time as last authors in biogeography. Looking at the data from different countries, sorry, I just noticed a few minutes back that this is all in Spanish, but I think you can have an idea of the countries and which country I'm referring to. So what we did was just categorize the countries according to the percentage of authors they have that are females. Brazil would be the top country with a higher percentage of female biogeographers, okay? But most countries have about 25%, 26%, 24% of female authors. Switzerland stands here with 24% of female authors in these biogeography journals. Then China has 14%, and all the rest of the countries have less than 14% of female biogeographers in their publications. Oh, this was something, okay, this is something that I wasn't sure I should bring because it's specifying particular authors. I'm not going to name them. These are the 5 top researchers that had more papers published in this time period. I'm not going to say their names, it's not important, but I'm sure some of you can guess who they are. And what we wanted to see here, it was to explore how top researchers collaborate with other researchers. Okay, so what we did is to see which was the gender of the first author when these top researchers were last authors, and to see the gender of the last author when these top researchers were first authors. I must say these top 5 researchers, they're all men, okay? So when they are last authors, around 25% of their papers, 20-25% in most cases, have a woman as a first author, probably a student of theirs. But when they are first authors, in most cases, they don't publish with a woman as a last author. Okay, just show how the collaboration works, right? So, but I think the picture I've shown you here today might be even worse than it looks. The reality, sorry, might be even worse than what I've shown you today. This paper was just published a few months back in Nature. And what these authors did was they searched all the databases of the employees of different institutes, research institutes, universities in the US, okay, and they gather information about the number of people and their gender, number of people working in science at the faculty level, postdoctoral level, graduate students, undergraduate students, and research staff. This is the graph on the left side. And what they saw is that according to the number of women working in science, there should be a higher proportion of women publishing. So women are giving less credit for their research for some reason. Okay, and this result occurs in different research areas. This is what we are seeing here on the right graph with the red circles. It's not something specific of STEM. It also occurs in social sciences and within all areas of STEM. So it looks like probably this authorship list that the women are participating less than they should as authors. They are being less credited for their work. So to conclude, I think I've given enough proof that there are gender biases in the publication process in ecology, and that this occur at different levels, at the composition of the editorial boards and also at the authorship level. In the case of the editorial boards, I've shown you there is a lower percentage of women acting as editors. And in 70% of the journals, there are no women acting as editors-in-chief. Impact factor doesn't seem to have an effect on the proportion of female editors, but first year of publication it has a positive effect with more recent journals having a higher percentage of female editors. In the case of authorship, there's a lower percentage of female in biogeography, particularly when looking at last authorship. And although there is increasing number of female authors through time, we don't see a significant increase as women as last authors. And also, I've shown you there are some differences among countries, but the tendency is pretty much similar in most countries. So I don't want to conclude my talk here. I would like to talk or discuss with you about why does this occur? Why are there some all type of gender differences and gaps in science? Is it because of cognitive ability? Do women and men have different cognitive abilities? Probably not related with this. There are several studies that show that girls and women score better at maths tests, at STEM tests. So probably it's not related with cognitive ability. Is it because of gender stereotypes that are imprinted in the society? Probably. And actually there's some cool research showing that these gender stereotypes start appearing at really young ages. In this study, they did some experiments with young children from age 5 to 7, and the different letters represent different study groups. So, but anyway, it's not important. But in blue, we have the results for boys, and in red, we have the results for girls. And in the experiments, what they did was tell a story about someone that was really smart. And they didn't give any clue about the gender of that person. And then they asked the children to say what was the gender of that person that was really clever and really brilliant. The children that are around 5 years, they had a higher tendency to say that that brilliant person is someone who has the same gender as themselves. So boys would say that brilliant person is a boy, and the girls would say that that brilliant person is a girl, is a woman. But then by the age of 6 and 7, you start seeing more girls saying that that brilliant person is a boy or a man. So something changes around that age, and children start perceiving that men are more brilliant than women. Okay? This probably then affects the way children choose to play, and then later on how people choose their careers. In fact, there are other experiments where children were exposed to different activities, some activities for people that are really smart, and some activities for people that really try hard. And when looking again at the age of the children, 5-year-old children, there was no difference in the way they chose the games. Both girls and boys show no differences when choosing the game for smart people. However, by the year of 6, there was a tendency for girls to choose less this game for really smart people, and boys would show a higher tendency of choosing this game. Okay, so again, some gender stereotypes, I don't know why, that start kicking in at some point in children, and also affect the way they choose their activities. Okay, with girls showing a tendency for choosing activities that are not meant to be for smart people. Okay. And what about family work balance and motherhood? Does it affect this? Is it somehow related with the gender differences in sciences? Probably yes. What I'm showing you here, it's a study that we've conducted with an undergraduate student And then we had to change the chance to publish it in an ecology journal, a Spanish ecology journal called Ecosistemas. It's in Spanish, but anyway, what we did in this research was to send out surveys to researchers in Spain working in the life science area. And we wanted to see what was the perception that researchers had on the impact of motherhood and fatherhood on the scientific career. So we divided the results according to different group of researchers, men and women without children and men and women with children. And what we see here is the perception of the researchers regarding maternity, and all of them, all this group of researchers, they understand there's a negative impact of maternity on the scientific career, and this impact is higher when the children are younger, when people have younger children. Researchers also described the negative impact of fatherhood in the scientific career, but this impact was smaller or lower than the impact of maternity. And funny enough, the results are different when you look at the answers given by men and female. So men perceive that the impact of paternity is higher in their careers than women perceive. Okay, so yeah, men complain more, let's say. This is also an interesting result. Then we also asked people about their personal life expectancies, if they had to change their personal life plans, or having children, or starting a family, if they have made some changes because of their scientific careers. And these changes could be something like not having children, or having children later than they initially liked, or having less children than they prefer. And what you see here is that many people have made changes in their personal lives because of their careers, but we didn't have many replies from men without children. And the ones that replied, well, some of them, yeah, say that they had some changes of plans, but apparently not so important as other groups that we looked into. Particularly interesting is to see women without children. Many of them have made changes in their personal lives, probably by not having children at all. Okay. We also asked people that had children, how was the time devoted to different activities before and after having children. And we see that people with children, both men and women, started devoting less time to work after having children and to leisure activities. But we found no differences here. But when we look at the time devoted to childcare, to taking care of the children, women have replied that they spend more time. Significantly, there was a significant difference between the time women and men devote to childcare. Of course, there's this dilemma that researchers in general and women in particular face when they work in science, because the highest scientific productivity comes up when you're doing your PhD, starting your postdoc, getting a permanent job, and that coincides with the time when you start the fertility starts decreasing. So many of us face this dilemma of having to change or delay our motherhood in order to be able to keep up with our scientific productivity, right? It's biology, just the time period coincides, and that somehow must also affect the representation of women in science. I would like to finish with this sentence by Lynn Margulis. I don't know if you agree with it. I don't totally agree with it, and I'll explain why. She said that it's not humanly possible to be a good wife, a good mother, and a first-class scientist. No one can do it, and something has to go. My question is, what is a first-class scientist? Someone that just produces a lot of papers, or someone that does good science, even if it matters not a large number of papers and big funding? I don't know. This is something probably we all have to think, what is a first-class scientist, right? And probably if we change our mindsetting about what is a good scientist, maybe we can be a good wife, a good mother, and still be a good scientist. So yeah, I've shown you some potential reasons of why there are gender differences and biases in science. There are some solutions out there. Some countries are applying them. Some of them are controversial, others are not so controversial. Anyway, maybe we can discuss a bit now about them. And yeah, anyway, thank you for listening. And I hope you enjoyed this talk.
Thank you, Guida. Thank you for dedicating part of your time to studying this pressing matter. I know it's not your main line of research. It's something we don't get proper training to do, right? But it's amazing that you decided to take your career or part of your career that way to study gender bias, and for being here today, sharing this with us. It's some of the results, even though expected, are still shocking. Like, it's so much worse, at least from what I expected. It's so much worse. And we do need to raise awareness, and we do need to try to change the system. What I was wondering when you showed the first graphs with the where we can see that there's an increase in women taking role as first authors or last authors or occupying academic positions. Do you think this is following closely to the increase in women having PhDs and entering academia, or do you think it lags behind? Like, we have more women entering academia, but they are not at the same proportion being represented in these editorial boards or in these academic positions of prestige, for example.
I hope it's a matter of time. So you have more women entering the system, okay, more women doing PhD. I hope in, I don't know, 20 years time, there will be also more women occupying these more senior roles, right? Even within faculties, not only at the editorial boards or as authors. So hopefully it's a matter of time, right? I don't know. But the picture we have today is that they don't have this seniority roles, or at least they are not so well represented, right? And you probably see it also in your departments. Who are the professors or who are the lecturers, right? Maybe in 15, 20 years time, there will be more people, more women as professors. I don't know, maybe it's just a matter of time. I hope so.
I hope so. Yeah, probably it's not that easy, but I hope the lag is not too big.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We have some questions in the chat, but I don't know if someone wants to speak. You can just open the mic and make a question or drop it in the chat.
Go to the chat.
Let's see. Marco?
Yeah, I think Marco has, okay.
Yeah, okay.
Go ahead.
Got it, but I can maybe show myself. Yeah, okay. Thank you very much for this nice talk. I was wondering whether this happens also to other topics. I mean, more social related or anthropology, or do you think it's the same picture you show, like a more tendency in ecology and biogeography, so our fields? Does it happen also to other?
I don't know if it is so bad, okay? But looking at this graph here, where they where these authors what they did was to try to see if the proportion of female female working in science is reflected on the proportion of papers of authorship. You see here that also psychology, health, social sciences, they are also below the one-to-one line. So it's probably something that occurs. Probably not at the same level, but it also occurs in other research areas. Yeah. It's not something specific of STEM.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, because you usually associate, I don't know, nurses tend to be women, right? Social science, there's this slight tendency of thinking there are more women in social sciences, but then the results show that there are also gender biases there. Any more questions? Otherwise, I'll have a question for you. How are things in Switzerland? Are there any actions being taken to try to reduce this gender gap, or how are things there?
Well, I'm new to Switzerland, so I don't know much what to say. Maybe someone has a better feeling of it.
Are there quotas, specific grants for someone who came just out of maternity, or I don't know, are there anything like that in place?
I know that from the WSL, that the institute we're in, they always or very often advertise positions for PhDs or postdocs or PIs, strongly encouraging women to apply.
Mm-hmm.
And at least for the position I got, I remember they had a sentence saying something like, even though you feel you're not qualified, you should try it.
Okay.
And that, for me, that was the message that struck the most.
Yeah, they encourage people, not
Yeah.
apply anyway.
Carolina, do you want to say something? Oh, your mic is off.
Still off.
Now?
Yeah, yes.
Still not?
Yes, it's working.
Okay. Because I don't hear you now. Okay, something with the computer. But you listen me, Wajir.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, thank you. No, I am much more longer in WSL than, as you mentioned, Elisa. And when I arrived here more than 20 years ago, there were a lot of complaints about the situation of women in WSL. I'm talking from 2000 and the first years of 2000, 2001, 2, 3, 4. And there was even a letter to the minister that was a lady at that time complaining about our situation. But since there, what we have got in more than 20 years is that the advertisements are doing more now, encouraging women. So these are positive, is a positive development. But in my opinion, WSL is really, really very slow. So what we see now, it's something that should have been done more than 20 years ago. And it was done because WSL, more or less, to say it very shortly, was forced to do it because it was really a shame before, and it was not sustainable anymore. So I'm not, how can I say, I'm not just complaining about my situation only, but in general, to see young women coming here and then as soon as they get a baby, they have to leave because they cannot really compete to stay in science. It's very difficult. And another comment that you mentioned before, when I was young and I was a student, we were 50% ladies and with 50% men. And at that time, I was, our professors were telling us, it's good, you are so many ladies here, because we need a future professor. So from my, my generation, I don't know anyone that became professor. And I am finishing my career. I'm convinced if you don't do really a very conscious strategy how to make the situation equal for men and women, there will nothing happen, because what we see here is the representation of our society. And we have to do really to take measures and make aware about the situation. Otherwise, nothing will change. Yeah.
Thanks for explaining how the situation is there. I think there's Camila, no? Camila, you're muted. Okay, you're muted. Okay, try to sort it out. Or, oh, sorry, I cannot see. Maybe you can write. I cannot see the chat right now, but maybe if Elisa can, you can write down and then she can. Okay. Can you? Okay, I can.
We can hear you.
Can you take? Because I don't have
okay,
the chat
perfect.
on.
Yeah, thank you. No, I just want to add that actually there are grants for females in Switzerland. One, I think it's called I don't remember the name, but yeah, someone wrote, I think, Prima or so, right? So actually in the last years they were I think they were doing quite good thing. I was part of a kind of association for a while. It was 2 years ago, and it's called, actually, I still remember, have the newsletter, Association 500 Women Scientists Switzerland. And together we wrote a letter to the universities and academia to take to improve the situation, take measures. And I remember we were discussing about proposing like courses for students and employer to really educate on this gender bias and these issues. So then I got lost with the process, but the letter was sent, and then I think there were very good improvements. And yeah, they're still very active. Actually, there are 3 people, like 3 researchers, and they are mostly acting actually in Bern and Fribourg. Indeed, it's called 500 Women Scientists Bern Fribourg Pod. But they also organize a lot of events, and yeah, that's I think it's quite new. It was like 4 years ago or something like that. But they are actually very active. Yeah, just to say that.
Yeah, I'm involved in also some actions like this, but my feeling is that then things are not, or at least the strategies that are not working very well in some cases, because, okay, you say, oh yeah, apply, we encourage you to apply. Okay, apply to a postdoc, but then how do you continue, right? You go to a postdoc, you start having children. How does the country, the universities help you to, if you are good enough, to continue working in science and not having to leave academia, right? To take care of children, or to have a more normal working hours, etc. That's what my feeling. That there are not enough measures. There are a lot of talk, and everyone is aware. Everyone knows there's a problem. There's an elephant in the room, but no one really wants to take real actions to sort it out. That's always my feeling, and I see it here in Spain as well. For example, this fellowship I have now, in order to apply, you have to have a certain number of years since you finish your PhD. So that number of years can be increased if you have children. But again, doesn't solve much. When you look then at the number of applicants who gets it and doesn't get it, women are usually less represented still. So yeah, I don't know. It's a difficult topic, right? Because then we start talking about quotas. Maybe that's the way to go, at least for some years, until things get balanced. But then I must say, from a personal level, I wouldn't like to have a position just because I'm a woman. Let's be honest. So yeah, it's tricky, right? It's very difficult to deal with all of this. Yeah. I think Benjamin, yeah. Benjamin raised his hands.
Yes, thank you very much for your talk and the interesting discussion. I have just one example in mind that may be interesting for the discussion. We have colleagues working in University of Uppsala in the field of ecology and evolution. And this is a couple that they are both in a postdoc position, where they were in the postdoc positions at the time where they got a baby. And in Sweden, there is a wonderful 1-year parental leave that can be shared equally or in the convenient way for one of the two parents. And I think the bias in science you showed are just representing the bias in society in general. I'm not sure if we can do better without a strong support from the state or from, the society itself. So I know some fathers, they don't want to do more, but I know also others that they would be willing to contribute more to the family organization or the kids if they have this option.
Yeah, well, if people can decide how to divide the leaves, right, because of the kids, maybe the girl or the woman gets most of the time in leave, right, and the man goes back to work earlier. Of course, there's always biology behind it. If you're breastfeeding, that's the easiest way to do, the smartest thing to do, right? Here in Spain, I think it was last year or a couple of years ago, they increased the number of weeks you have once you have a children. It was 16 weeks for women, and I think it was a month or 2 for men. And now it's 6 months to both of them. They both have to have 6 months of leave, and they cannot change the man cannot give part of his leave to the woman. So yeah, you're forcing families to divide the time equally. Ideally, families should be free enough to decide how to divide this time, but then we go to the same trap again. Maybe the 1 year of leave will always be used by the woman and not by the men. So the result in the end in the society is the same. Women gets far apart from the working life for more time than the men. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you, Guida. And there's even a feedback loop there. If like the parents can choose which is the one that's going to take more time of parental leave. If the man is the one with the higher salary, probably he's the one that's got to go back to work soon, right? Mm-hmm. So we only make it worse somehow.
I have a colleague that during the pandemics, she was still doing her PhD, and she had 2 young children, and her husband had a good job. And so what they decided as a couple is that she would stay home those 2 months that we all stayed at home, taking care of the kids. She didn't work in her thesis, or pretty much didn't work anything at all because she didn't have time or energy, while he continued to working remotely, of course. So that's also that what we were saying about the salary. Usually men have higher salaries than women, and so it's better as a family, as a team, right, for him to continue working and continue providing money to the family. Yeah.
Benjamin, do we want to add something?
Thank you for the microphone. No, I just want to kind of put a more positive atmosphere on this, because I really think that we need nowadays cooperations. We need to have common responsibilities at the couple levels. And I think the way now we are presenting the problem or the issue is quite segregating the working load at the family level. And I would say that again, if we have good instruments and support to give more options to the families or to the young women that have kids, this is already a very important step, and at the moment I have the feeling that at least in Switzerland, they could do more, but it takes really time and to have a change in society. And then this can affect other fields like science and have a positive impact on different research fields, I can imagine.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope I'll still be able to see the change during my lifetime. I'm hopeful. Yeah.
Yeah, let's hope. Yeah, this discussion goes in the direction of what Breno wrote to the chat, that here in Switzerland we have quota, we have encouraging job descriptions and grants to get back to academia after pregnancy. But what we do not have is equal parental leave. And then if you ask me, he says, we will not seriously break the glass ceiling if expectation is that women invest more time in childcare than men. And then Anna complemented it saying that men have only 2 weeks parental leave in here, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. Marco, do you want to say something?
Okay. Not just, I mean, maybe it's not anymore the reality, but in my time when I wanted to go back to, 80% employment, I was discouraged because for a man it's like showing you cannot take responsibilities if you have like a pensum of less than 100%. So, and we want to actually to share like a position of chief of nature conservation sites, 50%. And they will say, no, it's much better if you take it either 100% or nothing. And this was really something that we could not, how to react, no? So it seems like also in a main word, if you don't want, or if you don't show that you are ready to work 100%, you are not a man, or you're not willing to take responsibilities. You're like lazy or something like this. I hope that this perception is changing.
I think it is. I think men are more, well, at least here in Spain, men are more involved in taking care of the children. I think it's slowly changing. I don't know about institutions. Here, I know that you can ask for a reduction of your working hours, but again, most of the persons asking them are women. I'm sure some companies, like it happened to you, discourage men to do so. I don't know. You have the possibility of reducing your working hours, of course, your salary as well. But in most the numbers I've seen here in Spain is still our women are the highest they are the most workers who take this reduce this working hours, not men. But anyway, I also want to give a positive note. I think it's possible to pursue a scientific career and still have a family. It means a lot of work from your partner, of course. I have 3 children. And I see that when I compare with my male colleagues that finished their PhDs about the same time I did, now they are a little bit way further in the academic careers. They have like more stable jobs. But anyway, I will get there eventually. It will take us more time, unfortunately. It shouldn't be like this. It's probably a bit more work than they had to do, but anyway, it's possible. So I want to finish with a positive message. Okay.
It's very nice to see how everyone get caught up in the discussion. It's nice to have this opportunity to discuss this. I wish we had more time, but we have to end soon. So I'll open the mic to Christine, and then we unfortunately would have to finish this. Go ahead, Christine.
Hello, thanks a lot for this great talk and the really interesting discussion. I would also like to close with a positive note. So I'm also a mom of 2, and I work at 60% now for 5 years already. And so my boss actually allowed me to do that and even have a PhD student. So I got a grant for that, and this PhD student just finished. So and I have my tiny little group, so it's possible to do that. I now switched to the WSL, and they actually allowed me to also lower my percentage for a while. I will get support for that. So it's possible, and I think WSL is also doing a great job in supporting women. So I think it's coming. We may just have to be a bit more patient. And maybe also, I guess, maybe we moms just, maybe for us, it's also just a bit more important to spend more time with the kids. I don't know, in our case, that's this. And I'm still hoping that we can be good moms and also do great science. And I feel like I think we can. If we get some help, I think it's possible.
We're definitely good moms. We are persisting and showing our children that perseverance has its returns. At least that's what I like to think.
Thank you everyone for joining. We have some interesting discussion in the chat going on. Luca mentioned a scholarship here in Switzerland for professorship that's specifically for women, but then we got the news that's not anymore because it was merged with a different scholarship. But still, you have the links and the name of the scholarships there in the chat. I hope it's useful. And once again, thank you very much, Gida. Thank you all for participating in the discussion. It's clear we have a lot more to discuss, so I hope we have more opportunities to do so.
I hope so.
Yeah, and we get back with the biodiversity seminars in the 18th of January. I hope to see all of you there again. And yeah, thank you all. Thank you, Gida.
Thank you for inviting me.
Let's do better. Bye.
Bye. Elisa, should I stay a little bit longer?